Who Owns the Future? Jaron Lanier, Chapter 2. Digital technology changes the way power, or an avatar of power, such as money or political office, is gained, lost, distributed, and defended in human affairs. And right here I want to call it, I love the use of digital technology of describing power or the avatar of power. I like the use of thinking of this simulated power, which would be tied to simulacra and simulation. Like the avatar is a very digestible way to represent that simulated experience today. So just calling that out. But lately, network-empowered finance has amplified corruption and illusion, and the internet has destroyed more jobs than it has created. A simple example, I like this representation here, and when you see this example expanded across different industries and at the individual level, and maybe even your own personal experience. But it's magic that you can upload a phrase in Spanish into the cloud services of companies like Google or Microsoft, and a workable, if imperfect, translation to English is returned. And so, like, I think it's easy for people to say, today, to just think technology is doing all of that work, and that the value created from this is created by the technology. But it will almost always turn out that multiple previous translations by real human translators had to contend with similar passages. So a collage of those previous translations will yield a usable result. A giant act of statistics is made practically free because of Moore's law, but at core, the act of translation is based on the real work of people. So this is key. Alas, the human translators are anonymous and off the books. The act of cloud-based translation shrinks the economy by pretending the translators who provided the examples don't exist. With each so-called automatic translation, the humans who were the sources of the data are inched away from the world of compensation and employment. So that's huge. This is critical. Just try to conceptualize the large scale impact of all of this. This goes back to the idea of like data dignity, and it goes back to the idea of how valuable the data that we're providing actually is. So like people tend to think like, oh, like what I'm providing in the digital space as, personally, like what value of it is there really? And that's flawed in itself. There is tremendous amount of value in just your everyday experiences online, even in social media. But it's hard to conceptualize just what that is. And it becomes easier to see when you see it through the lens of commerce and like actual, information being provided. So in this case, we have the translators who are doing the work, the hard work to figure out all of this stuff. And the technology just takes that, let's say, okay, let's work through how that would actually play out. Let's say a translator has dedicated their lives to, figuring out all of this stuff. And then they post their findings publicly in the digital space. And hopefully maybe that will yield credibility and respect in that discipline that will potentially have economic benefits to that individual, but it's not guaranteed. But furthermore, the tech companies then get to take that information and build a tool, a resource off of it that they can then monetize without having to give attribution to the data that was provided by the number of people doing that work. So then what happens is they're concentrating the practical, tangible value of the information, and they're capitalizing on the economic benefits of that. So really, the value is in. So they're placing no value on the information, but they're placing the value down the road on the commercial execution that is entirely predicated on that information. Super interesting. At the end of the day, even the magic of machine translation is like Facebook, a way of taking free contributions from the people and regurgitating them as bait for advertisers or others who hope to take advantage of being close to a top server. So, and then in a world of digital dignity, each individual will be the commercial owner of any data that can be measured from that person's state or behavior. Treating information as a mask behind which real people are invariably hiding means that digital data will be treated as being consistently valuable rather than inconsistently valuable. In the event that something a person says or does contributes even minutely to a database that allows, say, a machine language translation algorithm or a market prediction algorithm to perform a task, then a nano payment proportional both to the degree of contribution and the resultant value will be due to the person. And that's not even that crazy of a thought. That's like the idea of trademarking or copywriting. So the nano payments will add up, lead to no new social contract in which the people are motivated to contribute to an information economy in even more substantial ways. So he says, this sounds, this is big talk, whatever, but it's more than that. It's a little bit of both. I don't know. So then there's this portion here on the ancient anticipation of the singularity. So as far back as Aristotle. And side note, one of the reasons why I connect so instantly to Jaron Lanier is that his influence is very human. It's across he's not hyper specialized. He can talk about music or Aristotle or economy, all of these things, which is important in seeing when you're making decisions on the bigger picture. You have to see the bigger picture. So I love that he is able to include Aristotle. So Aristotle directly addressed the role of people in a hypothetical high-tech world. This is a quote from Aristotle. If every instrument could accomplish its own work, obeying or anticipating the will of others, like the statues of Daedalus or the tripods of Hippolytus, which, says the poet, of their own accord entered the assembly of the gods, if in like manner the shuttle would weave and the plectrum touch the lyre without a hand to guide them. Chief workmen would not want servants, nor masters slaves. So Aristotle was recalling Homer's account of the god Hephaestus's robotic servant creations. Yeah, there's a little bit more to that, but continuing on to see. These days, music is more than a need to be met. Musicians who seek to make a living are goaded by the preferences of the marketplace into becoming symbols of a culture or counterculture. The countercultural ones become a little wounded, vulnerable, wild, dangerous, or strange. Music is no longer a nutrient to be supplied, but something more mystical, a forge of meaning and identity, the realization of flow in life. This book imagines that people like that might someday make a living at what they do. All right, and the plot. This is key. Aristotle seems to want to escape the burden of accommodating lesser people. His quote about self-operating lutes and looms could be interpreted as a daydream that better technology will free us to some degree from having to deal with one another, to deal with, It's not as if everyone wanted to be closer to all of humanity when cities were first formed. Athens was a necessity first and a luxury second. No one wants to accommodate the diversity of strangers. People deal with each other politically because the material advantages are compelling. We find relative safety and sustenance in numbers. But in Aristotle's words, you get a taste of what a nuisance it can be to accommodate others. Something was lost with the advent of the polis. The reward, then this is what I want to zero in on, is this example. The reward for a Roman general, upon retiring after years of combat, was a plot of land that he could farm for himself, to be left alone, to be able to live off the land with the illusion of no polis to bug you. That was the dream. The American West offered that dream again. And still loathes giving it up. I love this. Justice Louis Brandeis famously defined privacy as the right to be left alone. The right to be left alone. That's what privacy is. People naturally seek the benefits of society, meaning the accommodation of strangers, while avoiding direct vulnerabilities to specific others as much as possible. You know, people have thousands of friends online, yet they stare at a little screen when in the proximity of others. So the idea here is critical. And I'd like to think about the Roman general example. Like, I think I have a personal, one of the things I've had a hard time defining what privacy looks like. But ultimately, if you want to be left alone, if you want to be on your own, shouldn't that be accessible? Shouldn't that be possible? We don't have to have this mentality of, togetherness or whatever. And it's just interesting, like the Roman general thing. That's what serving is. I think that's the idea of, that's what the whole idea around a massive focus on the right to occupy your own land and being central to that is then you're free to be on your own, operate on your own. You're self-sustainable, right? Greek. To be left alone, to live off the land, with no illusion of, I don't know, yeah. So all right, so this really serves as sort of getting the details. I'm gonna do a part 2 on my analysis.